On the profile interview segment this week, I'll be speaking with the Director General of the Nigeria Employers Consultative Association. He brought us up to speed on how organized private sector is reacting to fuel subsidy removal, while also suggesting interventions that will improve the economy and organize businesses. It's good to have you on the program.
Thank you. Good evening. Thanks for having us.
And I think congratulations to Nigerians on having a smooth transition of government.
Absolutely, with all the apprehensions, but that's common, and we thank God where we are now.
A lot has been happening in the organized private sector and even in the labor space generally. We know it's a tripartite body. We have organized private sector, we have organized labor, and we have government itself. How has organized private sector been responding to this development of subsidy removal, even though we all are aware that it's the inevitable? How prepared was the organized private sector for this?
Well, as you said, we waited for the transition, and against all odds, we had a transition already concluded, notwithstanding what's happening outside the scope and within the realm of the judiciary. But at least we have a president who seems to have hit the ground running. The expectations are very high, and also we were not confused that the road is going to be easy. It's going to be bumpy. It's going to be challenging, flowing from where we are coming from. A lot of things that have misaligned. So before, it's just like a bone that is broken. So in the course of resetting, you feel some pain. Now, how much pain you feel will depend on the expertise of the bone setter. If it's so vast and so expert in the way he set his bone, you feel less pain. And if it's not so vast, then it escalates the pain that you face. So for us, good transition has come in. The president has made pronouncements on the issue of fuel subsidy. We are also aware that the Appropriation Act also make provision for subsidy till end of June. Why the president did not wait till end of June, so that we have enough time to engage stakeholders to create a roadmap towards achieving that end. We don't know. Probably they have their reasons. But fundamentally, the pronouncement has created a lot of shock, a lot of disproportionate shock and an apprehension in the system. Within 24 hours, the fuel queues returned. Whether those are justified or not, it's another conversation for another context. The price of food and services already increasing. So unconsciously, for an action that we anticipate, we're already creating inflationary pressures also to go with it, coming with some level of hardship for Nigerians. And those are the main concerns about these issues that we have. Fundamentally, there is a consensus that subsidies should go. But we are basically funding inefficiency, we are funding waste, we are not funding productive activities, which is unfortunate. So subsidy will leave. Those are consensus that has been agreed.
I will go back to that question again. What has been the complaints of organized private sector? What has been the feedback from your members? How are they coping with this development?
It's a combination of the three. There are fears. We already have our colleagues, our workers already angling for, okay, what is the next thing? We want salary increase, but we feel beyond salary increase. The issue goes beyond salary increases. Now there are inflationary pressures. How much salary increase do you want to give? We think the conversation we should be having should be focused on how do we increase or improve the living standard of Nigerians? How do we approach the cost of living in such a way that we progressively bring the cost of living down? Because that is the whole where the conversation should be going. It is less of palliatives now. It is more of definitive intervention. Because this is the scenario. With the current rate now, definitely the cost of production will go up from the employer side. The cost of production will go up the capacity utilization will most likely come down because of increase in energy cost, because of increase in personnel cost. Now, you have produced, but because the disposable income of the masses or the workers from the other hand has been eroded, so their ability to even purchase your stock is also compromised. So you're on the risk of also producing and not getting people to buy. So it's a rigmarole. So when government is engaging labor, it's awesome. But you don't deal with the issue from one perspective. As it affects labor, it also affects employers massively. And if you deal with the issue of salary increases or upscale salary or allowances, those increases will be eroded in the market.
Okay, the organized private sector seems to be missing out in this conversation of the effects of the fuel subsidy removal. Recently, we saw that government and the organized labor have actually been having meetings. Right now, as we speak, would you say that organized private sector have been carried along, owing to the fact that we know that organized private sector has the most employment, they employ more people? What has been the effect on businesses, and why do you think you should be brought to the table? Why should NECA, MAN, and others be brought to the table to have a robust conversation?
We really hope we'll have learned that for you to address a major national issues, national issue within the context of the economy, within the context of the workplace, within the context of employment, socio-economic welfare of Nigerians, I think it's better to approach it from a holistic perspective. Because if you, while we are happy that at least government has reached out to one of the social partners, NLC TUC, it's also important that they marshal the courage to involve the organized private sector. Because on the long run, whatever negotiation or palliative or intervention you have with the union, those palliatives, there's potential that the effects will be neutralized if you don't deal with the same issue from the private sector perspective. Now, there is inflationary pressure now. The cost of production basically will go up. The energy costs will basically go up. The capacity utilization of businesses will probably be reduced because they have to spend more now to produce. Fiscal policy measures that just came out from government. And there are definitive increase in tariffs, the introduction of new taxes. Organized businesses are currently paying over 60 different taxes, levies, and fees across board. There are many bills, over 20 bills, that is carried on from the Ninth Assembly that also has consequential effect on organized businesses. You have to pay this, you have to pay that, you have to pay that. Now, the business environment is already pressured. Now, we are coming now with the issue of the subsidy removal, which rightly or wrongly will translate to increase in prices of goods and services, increase in prices of consumables, increase in prices of inputs for organized businesses. So how do you want that group, organized businesses, to succeed? How do you want them to be sustainable? How do you want them to be competitive? So if you are dealing with the issue from one side, you are only creating a system that will neutralize each other at a point. So we want to urge government, let the engagement be holistic. As we engage our social partners, NLC, engage the third leg of the tripartite, the organized private sector. Because if you don't deal with the challenges of the organized private sector, then you are digging yourself into a more deeper hole.
Still dissecting the president's speech, he spoke about the creation of 1 million jobs. As the Director General of the Nigerian Employers Consultative Association, how possible is this, and what do you think needs to be in place for this to be achieved?
1 million jobs, that is ambitious but achievable. With the right policies, with the right collaboration, is quite achievable. Now, in the National Development Plan 2021 to 2025, there is also a proposal for the private sector to generate millions of jobs. And it's already becoming the rhetorics that this kind of jobs will be created, this kind of job will be created. And we've also noted that globally, out of every 10 jobs created, the private sector creates at least 8 or 9 of those jobs. So if you want to create jobs, then your focus should be how do you empower or create an environment that is friendly for organized businesses to thrive. So it still come back to creating an environment that is conducive for businesses to thrive. It still come back to for us to look beyond the current curriculum of our Nigerian educational system, focusing on people just going to school, having the impression that when they leave, they will get a white-collar job. I think we should be changing the narratives into TVET, the technical and vocational training. We currently run a viable partnership with the Industrial Training Fund. We call it Technical Skills Development Project. That is the way that many organizations, many countries, the way they are going in building the skills and competencies of their young ones. It is less of academics.
Back to the fuel subsidy removal. Would you say that the fuel subsidy removal has reduced productivity? What has been the feedback in terms of productivity in the country at the moment?
Absolutely. First, for you to produce, you need 3 things. You need inputs. Now, the price of input has skyrocketed, and businesses are struggling to get input. That is one. 2, you need the people. Now, the individuals are already demotivated, and some cannot even get to work because of the increase in transport costs. And then lastly, you need an environment that is safe, not only safe, but that is productive for you to even conduct a productive activity. Now, the first element of it that I mentioned as per input, now you have to pay double for your inputs. You have to pay double for energy costs. Now, in the projection in January, you probably didn't plan the disruption to your productive activities within the context of your inflows. Now you have to face that reality, and one of the options open to you is to find that you probably reduce your productive capacity, reduce your manning hours because the inputs are not coming. So it has had fundamental effects on organized private sector, and we just hope that the government will do the right thing, will resolve these issues as quickly as possible, so that we can get back to that path of growth.
Many economic experts have spoken about the advantages of subsidy removal. That's fuel subsidy removal. Some says it will reduce deficit, it will reduce borrowing, and definitely it will improve the macro economy. How true at this?
Absolutely, we totally agree with you. It will improve revenue inflow. It will do all those things that you mentioned. So the point is that how did we even get to this point? Nobody have answered that question. The wonderful things that we can do with the trillions and trillions of naira that we are currently wasting on subsidy. But what we have not addressed is how exactly did we get into this point of 3 refineries in a sovereign country not working, and we have the brains and we have the resources also to deal with those issues. So I totally agree with you. Taking out refinery will do a lot. Taking out the subsidy will do a lot for us as a country. And that was the premise in which all stakeholders agreed. Look, subsidy is not sustainable for us as a country. Commit the 2, 3, 4 trillions that you spend on subsidy on infrastructure, on creating social safety nets, on building or bridging the billions of infrastructural gap that we have in this country. It will work for us as a nation. But the process, as I said, the process of removal must be strategic, must be well thought out in such a way that it doesn't cause this kind of disruption that we have. Will the fuel price go up after subsidy has been removed? Most likely it will. But how you manage that disruption is much more important than the removal itself. If you don't address a good policy strategically, you have the tendency of creating a mess in your hands. And we seem to be so comfortable in creating that. Look at the Naira redesign policy. A very beautiful policy that can help the economy, but the implementation process led us to the quagmire we found ourselves.
Finally, what are the interventions? Because the government spoke about interventions, that there will definitely be intervention to cushion the effect of the failed subsidy removal. What interventions do you think the federal government can put in place that would improve the organized private sector businesses and probably improve the economy as well?
And one of the things to do, part of the immediate things to do, is the fiscal policy measures. You know, what we were angling for before was the suspension of it, or the reversal of it. I think we are much more loud now in calling for the suspension of that policy. We are calling for a holistic and deliberate review of the tax regime. You know, because it is double jeopardy for businesses. At one end, at the fiscal level, you are facing serious pressure. At the monetary level, you are facing serious pressure. From every angle, you are facing serious pressure. So let them review the fiscal policy measures that just came out. And we want a suspension of that policy, a suspension of the tax on plastics, a review even of the value-added tax, the consumption tax. Because you must create a definitive system to relieve the pressure on the citizens. Because look at those taxes. You increase the excise tax astronomically. You created new taxes. On the short run, the businesses will take the shock. But in medium and long term, the tax burden moves back to the consumers. So relieve the system of those pressure, those tax burden, and then you have created an environment that is more hospitable for organized businesses. That is just one of it. Many other instances that you can create leeways, opportunities for the real sector to grow, so that as they grow, as people become much more engaged, productively engaged, then you gradually or progressively remove subsidy, the effect will be less. So it's achievable. It's possible. The private sector is bleeding currently, and these policies, if it's not well implemented, I think we might run into much more challenges that the government did not anticipate.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for having us.
And that's all we can take on today's edition of the program. Join us next week for a fresh edition of the show. I am Sharon Ijason. Thanks for watching, and remember that labor creates wealth.